So A24 really wants you to take a ride on the nostalgia train this year, huh? Hey there guys, what's up? What's going on? It is Movie Review Mike 18 here, back with another movie review for you guys. And in this video, I am going to be reviewing Mid90s, written and directed by... Hold on one sec, Jonah Hill? So Mid90s follows Stevie, a young 13-year-old boy played by Sonny Solchick, who has a very difficult relationship with his mother, played by Katherine Waterston, and his brother, played by Lucas Hedges. He befriends a group of skaters in Los Angeles in the mid-1990s. So the film focuses on Stevie's efforts to sort of become one with this group, you know? He wants to be cool, like he sees the way they are, you know? He looks up to all of them in a sort of way, even though they're kind of introducing him to some things that a 13-year-old really shouldn't be doing, like drugs. But specifically, they love skating. That's where their passion lies. They love going to skate parks. They love skating. They love doing insane, weird, crazy, ridiculous tricks that nobody should ever attempt to ever do. So guys, yes, this film is actually Jonah Hill's directorial debut, which he also wrote the screenplay for, and I gotta say, I'm really just amazed at how many really outstanding directorial debuts we've gotten from filmmakers this year in big budget, you know, feature release or indie release films. But what is it with actors or comedians turning into directors this year? Seems like a pretty big thing. So guys, very similar to 8th Grade in this sort of vein. It's the most recent film that comes to mind, and it's from the same distributor. Mid90s is a coming-of-age story with incredibly well-realized young characters sort of coming to an important realization or trying to sort of figure out how they identify themselves as they're growing up. Yet, at the same time, it also serves as a somewhat nostalgic trip to anyone who grew up in that generation. Me personally, I didn't have a huge nostalgic connection to this film. I was born in '96, so I was 4 years old by the time the '90s ended and we were into the 2000s. So there is a lot of the '90s that I don't really remember. If I was an 8-year-old kid in the '90s, I probably would have, you know, felt an even greater connection to this movie than I did. Mid90s works so well for me as a story about a young kid trying to find a sense of belonging, sort of a way to identify himself with this young group of friends. I think when we first meet him, Stevie really doesn't know who to identify with, but this movie really touched me in a way, and it was a really profound look into this idea that we're all searching for a sense of belonging when we're that young. I felt that Jonah Hill was very successfully able to capture those sort of feelings, whether we're trying to be cooler or do things that sort of give us a bigger sort of status or anything amongst all of our friends. I think all of us can sort of relate to those elements even if you didn't grow up in the 90s. I think we can all sort of connect with that idea of wanting to escape from the harsh realities of the real world and just get lost with a group of friends who kind of understand you. I love the commentary on the fact that these boys just love skating and they use that as sort of an outlet. So in regards to the cast of Mid90s and all of these young actors, from what I believe, apart from bigger names like Lucas Hedges or Katherine Waterston, all of the young boys in this film aren't really actors. They've never really acted in anything before. Jonah Hill apparently casted actual skaters and young kids who are really big skaters on Instagram and everything, and that's how he decided to cast the movie. And I kind of like that choice because I feel that all the performances in this movie all feel really natural, and for a good majority of the film I felt like I was watching real young boys get into the sort of circumstances and situations that they get involved in. So guys, Sonny Solchick is excellent as Stevie, a 13-year-old Street Fighter, Nintendo-loving, skating wannabe. That's the best way to sort of sum up his character. He just brought such a strong degree of innocence to him in his face, in his voice. I don't even think the poor kid has hit puberty yet, or maybe he has since they shot the film, but he also brought such a very powerful sort of rawness of emotion in several scenes as well, and he really took the character to places I really wasn't expecting, and I connected with him really quite well, and I loved just sort of observing the world and his friends through his eyes through the movie. He kind of reminded me of a young Ty Sheridan in Mud, actually. I thought Ty Sheridan had such a sort of rawness to his performance in that movie as well, and he also just looks like a young Ty Sheridan a little bit with just a little bit longer hair. Lucas Hedges is also very good as the brother character in this film. They have a very strained sort of relationship with each other, and often sometimes very abusive relationship with each other. They're constantly getting into fights or beating each other up, and then a scene later, or several scenes later, they'll be playing video games together. And of everything that happened in this film, the one thing that I was able to very strongly relate to was a lot of the scenes with the brothers in that regard, because I personally have a younger brother, and I can confirm from experience that at times when we were younger, our actions definitely were reflected in beatings and punching each other and kicking the crap out of each other. So yeah, I think the movie definitely captured that, and to anyone who thinks that, you know, the both of them are just these savage young boys, and no, young brothers can get that violent. I can confirm that for sure. I think the entire cast of characters and all of the young kids in sort of Stevie's friend group are all really, really good. But for sure, guys, the standout out of all of them, for me, was this young actor by the name of Nickell Smith. Nickell Smith plays Ray. He's essentially like the head of the group of friends. He's basically the one who's kind of calling the shots and telling them where they should go here or there. Even though they all, you know, kind of make their own decisions, he's kind of the one that they all sort of look up to, and he's the sort of cool one. And Nickell Smith easily turns in what is one of the best supporting actor performances I've seen from a film this year. I feel that Nickell Smith just brought such a strong sense of awareness and a sense of wisdom to the character. In about 2 scenes, he sort of takes Stevie in, but gives him an idea of what his life is like and what other kids' lives are like, and how skating is really just the one way that they're able to escape all of that and just get away from all of their old baggage and all of the problems that they've dealt with. He has a very scene-stealing conversation with Stevie. The two of them are just sitting against this brick wall. It really just brought such a deeper connection between the two of them, but he's excellent. Best supporting actor worthy for sure. Is he going to get nominated? No, hell no. The Academy's not going to recognize him. Why do they ever recognize good performances? Does he deserve to get nominated? Absolutely. So I'll just say it here for everyone. So another one of the real big stars of this movie is Jonah Hill as the writer and director. I thought he delivered an incredibly real and very personal story for his directorial debut. He chose to shoot this film with the sort of 4:3 aspect ratio, where you see the black bars on the sides of the screen, and the film is presented in sort of like a square box. You know, if you guys saw the film last year from A24, A Ghost Story, they shot the film in a very similar manner, and I really bought into and admired that choice that he made, while also making the decision to shoot on 16mm film. And in that aspect ratio, it makes the film have a really nostalgic sort of grainy sort of 90s feel to it in the way it was shot and presented to us in that format. And it felt like I was kind of watching like an old home movie VHS tape at some points, and it just added to the sort of authenticity of the film, and it just made it feel like it was really grounded in that era. So choices like that he made, I really admired. But what really stood out for me with Jonah Hill's stamp on this film was his screenplay. If you're a fan of following that sort of 3-act structure diagram, you're really not going to get that with this film. There's no like rising action or no like midpoint of the film where everything just goes to crap or anything like that. For a large part of this movie, you really just feel like you're watching young people hanging out, socializing, doing drugs, getting drunk, talking to girls at a party. But through all of that, I feel Jonah Hill took a very observational stance as a director and a writer on this film and focusing on this time period and this era, and I actually really quite liked that. It felt like I was watching real people, as I've said before, after a while, and it brought a lot of authenticity and genuity to the movie for me. I think all in all, this is just an important movie for anyone who feels that they don't belong to a certain group of friends, and anyone who's sort of trying to just find connection with other people. I also really enjoyed the soundtrack of this movie. A lot of great 90s hip-hop songs, but the score is also very well done. They got Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, the guys who did the Social Network score. I think they also scored Gone Girl quite recently to do the score for this movie, and it was just excellent. So guys, I do have a few issues with the movie. I don't think it's perfect. My first big issue is I feel that the film has a very abrupt ending. It just ends. You know, it almost just ended out of nowhere for me. Honestly, when the film ended, I said out loud in the theater, there really wasn't that many people there. I said out loud, I was with my girlfriend, I said, "That's it?" And the only reason why I said that is because it didn't feel like the film had an ending to me. It felt like it had some resolving beats, but it didn't feel like an ending. I wanted another scene to sort of sum everything up, because something very monumental happens in the third act of this film, and then everything's just sort of fine. And they don't really address any of the consequences of what should happen, you know? Another one of my issues with the film, I really felt like Lucas Hedges' character needed a sort of bigger place, or needed more scenes shared with Stevie in the film. But I feel like there was definitely some more deep-seated issues that the two of them have gone through, whether it was maybe a parent's divorce or something. And I felt like the film could have explored that and touched upon that a little more, and maybe one more scene that the two of them had. The one other issue I had with this film, but it's something that not a lot of people are really talking about, so I felt I should bring it up. There's a scene at a party, and without spoilers, Stevie interacts with this girl who is about 3 years older than he is. I would say she's about 16, 17 years old. I mean, she definitely looked older, if anything. And he's 13 years old. Now, he looks like he's like 11 years old in this movie. And the two of them go to this sort of intimate place with each other, and it really kind of caught me off guard, you know? It just felt odd. It's not like he was being pressured into doing what was going on. He was into it. He wanted to do it, of course. He's experimenting. He's a young boy. He's curious about all of these things. But he was very nervous. And one could argue that her suggestive sort of behavior, or the way that she sort of comes off to him in the film, it feels like she was kind of coercing a minor into what the two of them wind up doing with each other. And I get what the point of the scene is. I get it's to give him this sort of credit to his friends that he's cool. But if the girl was like maybe 2 years younger and didn't look older, and maybe looked just a little bit older than him, I would have bought into it so much more, and it wouldn't have felt as creepy to me. But if you reversed the roles and it was a 17-year-old boy hitting on a 13-year-old girl, it would be downright creepy, and everybody would be putting that scene to shame. Because the roles are reversed, nobody is really saying anything about it. And no one's really saying anything about the fact that it's kind of wrong. So regardless of all that, this film is still a very deep and intimate portrait of finding escapism out of life's harshest realities, and also childhood innocence, and sort of finding yourself with a group of friends. And in that regard, the film works incredibly well. It's excellently directed and written by Jonah Hill, and it's wonderfully acted by a cast of young actors who aren't really actors, and they're all excellent in the film. In the end, guys, I am going to give Mid90s a solid grade of a 3.75 out of 5, or a grade of a B+. I think that this film definitely deserves to be seen. Support Jonah Hill, support his first movie. With that said, what did you guys think of Mid90s? Let me know down below in the comments. Did you love it? And yeah, thank you guys, as always, so much for watching my review, and I'll catch you in my next video. See you guys later.